The Church holds the key to heaven. But some doors were never meant to be opened. Beneath the marble corridors of the Vatican lies something older than faith. Silence. The silence of things hidden, forgotten, sealed. If you too are hidden, forgotten and sealed, check out Pantheon, our brand inspired by myths, legends and folklore. We ship worldwide and are rated excellent on Trustpilot. Link in the description. At just over 100 acres, Vatican City is the smallest country in the world. But size has nothing to do with power. This is a sovereign theocracy, ruled by the Pope and home to the heart of the Roman Catholic Church. It guides the belief of over 1.3 billion people across every continent, in every language, shaping laws, lives and legacies. It prints its own passports, operates its own banking system, maintains diplomatic ties with over 180 nations, and within its borders lies a concentration of wealth and historical authority that few empires in history have ever matched. Beneath its chapels and courtyards are priceless artifacts, texts, and access to knowledge stretching back thousands of years. But the Vatican's true power doesn't lie in what it reveals to the faithful. It lies in what it refuses to show. According to some, what's concealed within those walls goes far beyond theology. Suppressed gospels, forgotten histories, even claims of supernatural forces the Church sought to contain. These are the conspiracies it refuses to confront. At the heart of Vatican City lies a building few have ever entered and even fewer truly understand. The Vatican Apostolic Archive, formerly known as the Vatican Secret Archive, it was renamed in 2019 to reduce the weight of that single word, secret. Officially, the term was always meant to mean private or personal, but for centuries the connotation of secrecy has persisted, and for good reason. The archive spans over 50 miles of shelving. Within it are an estimated 85,000 volumes, some dating back more than 1,200 years. These documents include papal correspondence, diplomatic records, letters from monarchs, notes on church councils, and files concerning heresy trials, exorcisms, and internal investigations. Some of these are known to exist, others are only rumoured. Access to the archive is highly restricted. Scholars must apply with credentials, justify their research, and receive approval from the Vatican itself. Even then, they're only allowed to view specific documents. No wandering the aisles. No browsing through catalogues of forgotten history. Digital copies are rarely available. Photographs are limited. Many materials remain completely off limits. This level of control has invited centuries of speculation. Critics argue that the Vatican has built a vault of silence, one that protects the Church from exposure. Theories range from the plausible to the extreme. Some suggest the archives contain long-suppressed writings from early Christianity. Others claim there are ancient maps, lost knowledge, and sealed records of phenomena the Church could not explain or would not acknowledge. There are also persistent rumours of a section dedicated entirely to demonology. Documents describing exorcisms far more severe than anything publicly admitted. Internal manuals on confronting forces the Church could not control. In 2012, a German journalist, Michael Hessmann, was granted limited access to parts of the archive. He described finding documents that reshaped his understanding of Church history, correspondence revealing political interference in canon law, letters from popes to world leaders that never appeared in public record. If this is what was allowed to be seen, then what wasn't? Even major historical events have left traces that lead straight to the archive. There are believed to be letters between the Vatican and Nazi officials during World War II, along with documentation of the Church's knowledge of the Holocaust before it became public. Access to those documents was blocked for decades. Only in 2020 did the Vatican allow limited research into the wartime papacy of Pius XII, far too late for many historians. The archive is where narratives are curated, revised and, some believed, erased. What is preserved, what is hidden, what is permitted, all of it reflects the Church's ongoing attempt to manage the story of its own power. While some may dismiss the conspiracies as fiction, the existence of a sealed archive guarded by centuries of protocol is a fact. The only question is what remains inside, waiting for permission to be known. In 1945, a cave near Hag Hammadi in Upper Egypt, a local farmer discovered a sealed jar beneath the earth. Inside were papyrus manuscripts bound in leather and written in Coptic. These texts would become known as the Nag Hammadi Library, and they contained some of the most controversial writings ever associated with early Christianity. Among them are Gospels that never made it into the New Testament, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Later discoveries would add the Gospel of Judas to the list. These are often called the Lost Gospels, apocryphal texts that were excluded from the Christian canon, denounced as heresy, and in many cases actively destroyed. The fact that any survived at all is an accident of history. What makes them so dangerous is their content. The Gospel of Thomas presents Jesus as a teacher who reveals hidden knowledge. Salvation in this text comes through personal insight and not faith. The Gospel of Mary changes the authority of the male apostles and presents Mary Magdalene as a leader with privileged understanding. The Gospel of Judas goes further, portraying Judas as the only disciple who understood Jesus' mission and acted upon his request. In that version, betrayal becomes obedience. These writings undermine the foundation on which the institutional church was built. They question the nature of sin, the path to salvation, and the legitimacy of the apostolic succession. If these texts had shaped the faith, the church would look very different. Its authority would be decentralized. The Vatican does not deny that these texts exist. Their translations are available, their interpretations are debated, but their exclusion was no accident. Long before the scrolls were discovered in Egypt, the Church had already condemned them. They were listed in heresy decrees, referenced by early bishops, and denounced in councils that helped define what would and would not become Scripture. Many believe the Church knew of these Gospels for centuries. If any copies were acquired, they weren't preserved for study, but removed from the record. The Vatican has always maintained control over what is canon and what is permitted to shape belief. The lost Gospels, they were buried, spiritually, politically, and possibly physically. Where the copies sit today within the archive remains unknown, but their absence from every Bible printed under Vatican authority speaks louder than their presence ever could. These writings tell a different story, one that never aligned with power. In 1725, in a Serbian village under Habsburg control, a man named Peter Blagojevich reportedly rose from his grave. Within 10 days of his burial, 9 villagers died suddenly, claiming on their deathbeds that Blagojevich had strangled them in the night. When his body was exhumed, it was said to be incorrupt. Fresh blood stained his mouth, his nails and hair had grown. The villagers demanded action. The corpse was staked through the heart, then burned. 5 years later, in the same region, another case surfaced. Arnaud Payole, a soldier who had claimed to have been attacked by a vampire during his life and who took precautions to avoid becoming one. After his death, villagers reported sightings, livestock deaths, and a string of unexplained illnesses. His body was also exhumed. The military became involved. Priests were consulted. Corpses were disinterred, examined, staked, incinerated. These were official reports signed by Austrian medical officers and sent to church authorities. Some received copies of these investigations. Bishops debated the signs, priests documented the rituals. The church didn't publicly endorse belief in vampires, but it authorized measures against them: silence and control. At the heart of the fear was a tension the church couldn't easily resolve. Catholicism places a deep emphasis on blood. The sacred blood of Christ, consumed during the Eucharist, the blood of martyrs, the incorrupt blood of saints. The body of the holy is meant to decay slowly, if at all. Miracles are declared when blood doesn't dry. But in the vampire reports, the blood still flowed, a sign of hunger. The undead mirrored the incorrupt, but they reversed the meaning. They were animated by something the church could not name. Some priests treated the cases as spiritual. Exorcisms were attempted, graves were blessed. But when these failed, the ritual turned physical. Stakes were used, heads were removed, bodies were burned. What emerged was a strange fusion of folk practice and sacramental logic. If a corpse defied the natural order, then it had to be put down by force. There are theories that the Vatican created a category for such events, neither miracle nor heresy, but contamination. Some researchers believe the Church developed procedures that never reached the public. Quiet rites reserved for when the dead refused to stay buried, instructions for containment. Whether these rituals still exist is unknown. The Vatican has never released its internal correspondence on the vampire panics. The original reports from Serbia exist, but some letters mentioned in them can't be found. There are gaps. Parish records end abruptly, names that appear in one file and vanish in the next. Modern theorists believe that some of these materials were sealed away in the archive. They claim the Church saw vampirism as spiritual deviation, an unnatural extension of life that mimicked resurrection while denying salvation. The vampire is an error, a walking contradiction, and, for an institution that claims authority over death, that kind of error cannot be left uncorrected. Demonic possession has always had a place in Catholic teaching. The Church believes that there are moments when a human soul is no longer in control of its body, when something else speaks through the mouth, moves the limb, and hijacks the will. It treats it as a war. To confront it, the Church appoints official exorcists. Every branch is expected to name one. They are trained under strict conditions, either in Rome or by senior clergy, and approved by the Vatican. These priests are chosen, obedient, disciplined, and carefully monitored. The training includes scripture, pastoral psychology, and the use of Latin. But there is also preparation that doesn't appear in the published curriculum. Identifying signs, differentiating between deception and infestation, learning the thresholds that must not be crossed. They are taught that not every case should be confronted, that possession is rare, and that all medical explanations must be ruled out before the rite can proceed. Some must be referred, others must be silenced. There are rumours of a separate system, internal classifications of spirits, demonic hierarchies, indexed by name, voice, behaviour. Symbols not found in scripture, notes written in Latin, stored but never published. There are rumours of rituals that do not appear in the official rite, extended isolation, modified prayers, interventions that last days, not hours. Accounts from former clergy describe rooms within seminaries that were always locked, chapels that were never used, cases discussed only quietly between priests who never wrote anything down. One former seminarian recalled an altar that was permanently sealed because something had happened there that could not be cleaned. In 2018, Father Benigno Paglia, an exorcist based in Sicily, said that demand for the rite had tripled. He spoke of a growing need, more training, more response, but no mention of transparency. Instead of answers, the Church created protocol. Some believe the Church keeps a hidden liturgy, a set of deeper rituals preserved within the archive or passed orally between those trusted enough to know. rituals shaped by cases too disturbing to forget, but too dangerous to share. The Church claims to confront evil, but it rarely explains what evil actually is. The Vatican presents itself as the keeper of monotheism, the bastion of Christian truth in a world of false idols. But beneath its foundations lies a different story, one shaped by silent conquest. When Christianity rose to prominence in the Roman Empire, it absorbed what came before. Across Europe, temples to ancient gods were stripped of their names. The Pantheon in Rome, once dedicated to all the Roman gods, now bears the name of Mary and all the Christian martyrs. Its architecture remains, but its meaning was overwritten. This process wasn't limited to buildings. Pagan festivals were rebranded and folded into the calendar. Saturnalia became Christmas. Lupercalia softened into Valentine's Day. The spring equinox emerged as Easter. The original dates and symbols were too deeply embedded in culture to erase, so they were reinterpreted and presented anew. Even the saints tell a story of silent substitution. In rural regions, figures like St. Bridget of Kildare bear striking resemblance to earlier goddesses. Some saints perform miracles that mirror the powers of old gods they replaced. Healing springs, protective storms, and sacred groves became the domain of Christian figures, but the rituals surrounding them barely changed. To the faithful, these were signs of victory, paganism defeated by the truth of the Church. To others, it looked like camouflage. The Church didn't always destroy the old gods. It renamed them. It rewrote them. It turned them into saints, demons, or allegories, slotting them into a system that claimed to be new, but was built on bones much older. The Vatican rarely comments on these overlaps. It maintains that all truth flows through the Church, but history tells another version, one where holy ground isn't always Christian by origin, and sacred rituals may have been inherited from the very beliefs the Church sought to erase. Was this religious conquest or quiet assimilation? That depends on whether you think the old gods ever truly left. The Vatican has been linked to many unusual claims, but few are as persistent as the story of the cronovisor. The theory was first published by Father François Brune, a French priest who specialized in unexplained religious phenomena. According to Brune, the device was a machine built in secret by a group of monks and scientists working under church supervision. He described it as a time-viewing instrument, capable of tuning in to past events by detecting the residual energy of moments that had once existed. The cronovisor, he said, could receive those echoes. It could turn them into images and sound. It could look into history. Brune claimed that the device was used to observe the crucifixion of Christ, complete with audio and visual clarity. There were stories that the machine had also been used to witness lost speeches by ancient emperors, early Christian rites, and moments that were never written down. If true, it would mean the Church had seen history with its own eyes through direct observation. The theory gained traction because of who Brune claimed was involved. Enrico Fermi, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, Wernher von Braun, one of the leading minds behind modern rocketry, men with the scientific expertise to build something extraordinary if given the resources and a place to work without questions. According to Brune, they had both contributed to the project. The story grows darker in its final act. Brune stated that the cronovisor was eventually dismantled and hidden within the Vatican. It apparently revealed too much. If the Church possessed a machine that could view the past, the implications would be catastrophic. Scripture could be verified or contradicted, historical events could be exposed as legend or truth, and control over religious narrative would be weakened in ways the Vatican could not allow. The Vatican officially denies the existence of such a device. It states that no cronovisor has ever been built, possessed or hidden. Brune insisted otherwise until his death. No evidence has surfaced, no blueprints, no fragments, only the rumour that something was taken apart long ago, sealed away by those who believe that knowledge is dangerous when it can't be controlled. Whether the cronovisor existed or not, the theory persists for one simple reason. The Vatican has always acted as the keeper of history, and when an institution controls the past, it shapes everything that follows. High in the hills of Castel Gandolfo, southeast of Rome, sits one of the most advanced astronomical research facilities in the world, the Vatican Observatory. Few associate the Catholic Church with astrophysics, yet it has maintained a formal presence in the study of stars since 1891. Today, its research arm extends to Mount Graham in Arizona, where the Vatican operates a cutting-edge infrared telescope in collaboration with American institutions. Officially, the observatory's mission is to explore the relationship between science and faith, but for many, the scope of that exploration raises questions that the Church doesn't answer. The Vatican has invested heavily in the search for extrasolar planets, the study of galactic formation, and the observation of deep space phenomena. Publicly, these are scientific endeavors. Privately, theorists argue that the Church is preparing for something far older than any planet. They believe that the Vatican has collected and classified information on contact, records of unexplained aerial phenomena, ancient encounters with beings not of this world, and theological responses that were never published. At the center of this theory are the Nephilim, mysterious figures mentioned in the book of Genesis. The sons of God came into the daughters of men. It says, "And they bore children to them. These were the mighty men of old." Some traditions interpret the Nephilim as giants, others as fallen angels, but a growing theory reinterprets the passage as describing alien-human hybrids, the intersection of flesh and something not born of earth. If the Nephilim were real, and if the Church ever uncovered evidence of their origin, the implications would be immense. Were the angels of old truly celestial, or were they travellers from beyond? The Book of Enoch, long excluded from the canon, describes entities descending from the sky and teaching forbidden knowledge to mankind. Some believe this was not a metaphor. Jesuit priest Guy Consolmagno, director of the Vatican Observatory, had addressed the idea publicly. He stated that the discovery of intelligent alien life would not contradict Church teaching. He even suggested that baptizing an extraterrestrial would be possible. It was meant as a philosophical point, but to those already watching the skies, it sounded like preparation. Theories persist that the Vatican possesses classified materials, translations of ancient texts never released, accounts of visions too literal to be dismissed as allegory, correspondences between church officials and government bodies regarding unidentified aerial phenomena. These documents, if they exist, are sealed away, and if any proof was ever captured, it has never been shown. At the heart of this theory is a single fear: that the Vatican knows we are not alone, and has known for a very long time. The Superior General of the Society of Jesus, commonly known as the Jesuits, is unofficially referred to as Il Papa Nero, the Black Pope. The title was never granted by the Church, but it persists in conspiracy circles and within some parts of the Catholic world, reflecting the fear that true control lies in the shadows. Founded in 1540 by Ignatius of Loyola, the Jesuits began as a militant intellectual order, fiercely loyal to the Pope, but trained for subversion, infiltration, and education. They were missionaries, confessors, diplomats, and, in time, they became power brokers. At their height, the Jesuits advised kings, shaped colonial policy, and ran a vast network of schools and universities across Europe and beyond. The term Black Pope arose in part because the Superior General traditionally wore simple black clerical garb, in contrast to the white of the Pope, but over time the phrase came to signify something else: hidden rule, concealed authority, and a hand behind the throne. The Jesuits swear a fourth vow in addition to poverty, chastity, and obedience: absolute loyalty to the Pope. But conspiracy theorists claim it's a smokescreen. They believe that the Jesuits operate as a parallel command structure within the Church, that their loyalty is not to the Vatican, but to their own Superior General. That world events, from revolutions to financial collapse, are disruptions engineered for hidden agendas. Accusations stretch far. Some claim the Jesuits were behind the suppression of the Knights Templar, others tie them to the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, the sinking of the Titanic, even the creation of the Illuminati. A common thread runs through these theories: the belief that the Jesuit order functions as a hidden government, one that manipulates nations, religions, and economies to serve a vision known only to its inner circle. There are also persistent claims of occult influence. Some theorists point to obscure Jesuit writings, to symbols found in their churches, to rituals and doctrines that never appear in teachings. They allege connections to alchemical societies, to Kabbalistic texts, to arcane numerology embedded in church architecture. Nothing proven, nothing confirmed, but always present. The Vatican has never acknowledged the idea of a Black Pope. Officially, the Jesuit Superior General is a servant of the Church, accountable to the Pope, but even within Catholicism there is unease. The Jesuits were expelled from more than 30 countries between the 1600s and 1800s, accused of espionage and corruption. In 1773, the Vatican dissolved the order under political pressure, only to reinstate it 4 decades later. Today, the current Superior General is Arturo Sosa, a Venezuelan theologian who leads more than 15,000 Jesuits across the globe. His presence is quiet, his movements mostly unreported, his influence unknown. Is he a scholar? A puppet master? The Church says he serves. Conspiracy says he rules. There is a Latin phrase recited during the Easter Vigil Mass that has caused endless speculation. Lucifer matutinus invenit illum. May the morning star find him. In context, it refers to Christ, the bringer of light. But one word, Lucifer, has been enough to ignite decades of conspiracy. In classical Latin, Lucifer simply means light bringer, and was used poetically to describe the morning star, Venus. In early Christian texts, it sometimes refers to Christ as the one who brings light into the world. But in later centuries, the name became synonymous with Satan, the fallen angel cast out of heaven. This linguistic shift has been the fuel for countless accusations that the Vatican secretly worships Lucifer. Fringe theorists point to passages in Latin hymns and church documents where Lucifer appears without clarification. They claim this is invocation. Some allege there are hidden sects within the Church that venerate the adversary, that inverted crosses, black robes, and hidden altars are signs of symbolic corruption at the highest levels. They draw links between obscure Masonic rites, the Jesuits, and occult texts once banned by the Church but preserved in its archives. The Vatican denies all of it. To them, it's a mistranslation, a misunderstanding of tradition and language. But the conspiracies persist, fueled by a secrecy, shadows, and the lingering truth that names, once changed, are hard to reclaim. What began as a poetic title for Christ now echoes through the corridors of speculation as if the Church once named the light and now fears what that name has become. Time forgets. People forget. But the archive does not. It remembers every name it erased, every secret it buried, every truth it couldn't burn.